Post-Nuptials by Darth Link 22. Chapter 7. Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie cried tears of happiness as Princess Cadence and Shining Armor danced happily together, looking so serene, so peaceful. She turned to her friends, who all wore similar expressions. Her gaze stopped at Twilight, whose tears were coming out at a noticeably faster rate. Her normally tearful expression diminished somewhat. A smile was still there, but it was accompanied by sad eyes. She remembered the pain, the heartbreak on Twilight's face as those that were dear to her walked down on her, leaving her alone. It pained her just to think about it even now, after the unicorn had assured them that everything had been forgiven. Twilight smiled and nodded to her, prompting the pink pony to dash over to the turntables, and pull final scratch from where she had just finished plugging that last wire in. "Let's get this party started!" With that, she threw the microphone over to Twilight, who caught it with her magic and began singing. Soon, the entire garden was dancing, lost in the music, as if the day's events had been perfectly peaceful. As soon as Twilight finished singing, she offered it to Pinkie, who took it with gusto and sang a rendition of Equestria Girls. She then passed the microphone back to Twilight, who then tried it on the dance floor. Over the next song, she danced happily, and then once Octavia took the stage, she happily bounced off to the buffet table. She took a plate of cake and ate a piece in whole bites. Not the best by any means, but eating neatly was difficult for any pony who wasn't a unicorn, so it went unnoticed. By her 15th slice, she was lying on the ground, shoveling the sweets into her mouth while a crowd gathered around her, each making bets on how many slices she could eat. "You people do not want to try." Not the most high-class activity, to be sure, but the happy couple had already instructed most formalities to be dispersed with. Luna watched the scene with some amusement before walking over and magically lifting her into the air. "Dear Pinkie, might I have a word with you?" "Sure thing, Princess," she answered, though it came out muffled due to the last mouthful of cake. She swallowed as the Princess of the Night brought her to the side, sitting her down in front of her. "I could not help but notice you were enjoying those delicacies at an alarming rate." Speaking Princess began, "Well, of course, silly. I always love sweets." Luna nodded. "So I've heard. Twilight Sparkle has spoken of your desire for sugary confections. She, however, has never mentioned a time when you laid on the floor, stuffing them on your mouth at a rate swine would find disgusting. Tell me." However, at that point, Pinkie felt an itch in her front left hoof. "I'm sorry to interrupt your Highness, but could you excuse me for just one moment?" "Very well," Luna sighed. With that, Pinkie jumped into a nearby bush. She traveled through the branches until they became a rack of high-class engagement clothes. Then she popped out of the wardrobe in a suite in the castle, right in front of the key marker sayers, wearing a Pinkie promise to a certain purple dragon. "Never!" she yelled dramatically. Then she slowly backed into the wardrobe, leaving behind Fairy for her confused use. The clothes became branches again, and Pinkie jumped down in front of Luna. That was a Narnia reference. That was a freaking Narnia reference, Darth Link. Hoof bump. Woo! It was just as confused as the children had been. "You were saying?" Luna said in surprise, before regaining her composure. "Your overconsumption of fair applesauce cooking wouldn't have anything to do with your feelings of guilt, would it?" Pinkie's eyes went wide at the question, and she gave the biggest smile she could muster. "Guilty? Why would I feel that?" The unicorn gave her a startled look. "I flew by Twilight Sparkle's suite on my early evening patrol. I overheard everything you apologizing to her for the missing her earlier." "So why would I still feel guilty? She forgave us. There's no more need to feel bad." Luna's head tilted in a way that made it clear she wasn't fooled. "Perhaps there is no more need for guilt, but that was not my question. Are you still feeling guilty?" Pinkie's smile faded. Then she looked at the ground. "Maybe a little." Luna actually smiled. "Excellent! We are making progress. I have kept an eye on Twilight Sparkle's friendship reports. They speak of a time where you thought your friends had abandoned you, and you ended up hosting a party with a pile of rocks about a lint among the guests." Pinkie blushed, a rarity for her. "Yeah, I learned not to assume the worst of my friends." "It is indeed a good lesson to learn, dear Pinkie. I'm just not sure that was the best lesson you could have learned." "What do you mean?" Luna sighed. "Pinkie, What do you do when you feel sad and depressed? Pinkie does grin.
I smile, I laugh, until I feel better.
I see. Do you ever discuss things that depress you with the other bears?
Of course not,
the pony answered, as it was incredibly obvious.
I'm all about making ponies smile. I don't talk about sad stuff.
The unicorn sighed. Then you have a problem.
Pinkie-san, what do you mean?
Dear Pinkie, she began, trying to think of how her sister would phrase her intended message. You cannot simply deny things that depress you. Doing such things isn't healthy.
But I'm happy this way. Aren't you supposed to look on the bright side of life?
That is indeed a good philosophy, Luna said plainly. But I have learned from my own experiences that denying the existence of negative feelings could be just as harmful as focusing on them exclusively.
How?
Luna sighed. Long ago, when I first began to feel jealousy over the love of ponies might give to my sister, I tried to deny these feelings. I told myself that I cared not for who loved my knight, that I simply enjoyed it, and that was enough.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good attitude, Pinkie said.
I haven't finished, Luna said sternly, prompting Pinkie to fearfully silence herself. You're correct. That was a wise philosophy, but it did not rid me of my negative feelings. I tried burying them deep within me, denying their existence. As a result, they grew. For decades, I deluded myself into believing I wasn't feeling jealousy for my sister, and all it encompassed was allowing those feelings to grow unchecked. Eventually, I couldn't simply lie to myself any longer, so I pursued some outer help. Pinkie tilted her head quizzically. Hearing the unspoken question, Luna sighed, looking away from her subject. The reason alcohol was banned in Equestria for 500 years was because on my 100th birthday, I lost control. Sorry, Pinkie's supposed to stop giggling, but I couldn't help it. Contrary to popular belief, Pinkie had willpower, and she was currently exercising it, every bit of it, to stop from giggling. Darth Link, that is Pinkie. Good boy. You earned a cookie. I just want to pause here and say that I agree with Silver Quill when he said that one of the things that makes Pinkie such a great character is that she allows herself to cry. Such effort became moments later when a pastry fight broke out at the buffet table. As the guards rushed to starve it, Pinkie just laughed, while Superior grinned in amusement, especially after seeing Vinyl and Octavia running past them, pursued by 2 Pegasi guards. The Princess of the Night gave a brief chuckle. Then her expression returned to a stern one, as he remembered what she had been doing. So he turned back to Pinkie and continued. When I finally started to be honest with my feelings, I was far too gone. Celestia merely told me everything was okay, that I shouldn't worry. Had I heard those reassurances early on, they might have soothed me. But they did not as good now. I opened my heart to rage and jealousy, allowing Nightmare Moon to take it. Luna kept her composure, but her grief over the incident was still apparent in her voice. Pinkie saw this and trotted over to her, nuzzling her on the chest. The princess accepted this gesture, though it ended quickly. They were in a public setting, after all. The point I am trying to make is this, dear Pinkie. You are making the same mistake I made. You cannot simply deny your negative feelings. Already has taken its toll on you.
What do you mean?
Pinkie asked, confused. I referred to you to the earlier incident involving a party with your imaginary friends. You became so distressed that your mind immediately went into a deluded state. That is not the sign of a heavy pony. Pinkie just looked at the ground.
I thought my friends didn't like me anymore.
And while that would devastate any pony, that is not the normal response, Luna said sternly. You've been repressing your negative feelings for far too long. Now, I may be the wrong point to press this, but I must ask, how do you usually handle sadness? Do you ever discuss such feelings with your friends? Pinkie shook her head.
No, never. Anything that bothers me is temporary. I just remember that I have plenty to be happy about, and it cheers me right up.
Here's on my fix. I want to let you know something right now. Come here. Want to know a secret? It was this moment that helped inspired Pinkie's nightmare in the first Equestria's Mirage story. Yeah, This one right here. This was one of the big moments that helped inspire that scene. Princess nodded understanding. And I assume you are happy with your life right now.
Why wouldn't I be? I have 5 super awesome friends. Mr. and Mrs. Cake have been like parents to me, and I just got 2 baby siblings to boot.
I see. Tell me, you're bothered with Discord. Have you discussed it with the others?
I had to. Princess Celestia made us all go see his fancy doctor after that. He told us to talk about him with each other, and since the princess told us to listen to him, I did.
Luna knew Pinkie was telling the truth. She, like the other bears, had proven time and again their loyalty to her sister. Well then, I must leave you with a final thought. I am worried about you, dear Pinkie. I fear you might have had a painful experience in your life, something that you haven't discussed with your comrades. It is not my place to find out. However, I would recommend talking with the other bears about it. Luna achieved what many ponies thought was impossible, rendering Pinkie completely silent. She nervously ground her hoof into the ground while looking away from the princess. Luna, feeling her message got across, began to turn away. But at that moment, her subject spoke in a low voice.
I have been keeping something from the others. I've even been keeping it from Mr. and Mrs. Kink.
Have you now? Pinkie was quiet for a moment.
When I left my home on the rock farm where I grew up, my family was really mad at me. I left in a way that made them mad. I'm not sorry I left, but...
Luna held up her arm to stop her. Worry not about sharing with me if it bothers you. My goal here was to get you to get your feelings be known. I know I am not the best at comforting others, but I saw your plight and knew you needed help. If I have convinced you to discuss it with the other bears, then I have done well.
I will, Princess. I pinky promise.
Luna arched an eyebrow, looking puzzled. Pinkie promise?
Cross my heart and help the fly stick a cupcake in my eye.
The airplane went through the ritual. It was juvenile, but the princess smiled at it anyway. Then I must ask you to make another Pinkie promise. Pinkie brought a hoof up to her brow and saluted.
Yes, Your Highness.
You must talk with Twilight Sparkle come tomorrow, and assume that she does not feel angry towards you. Pinkie blinked in confusion.
She isn't silly. We already talked to her and she says she forgives us. She understands we had every reason not to believe her.
Just as you understand there's little point in dwelling on the mistakes she's forgiven you for? The pink pony's eyes went wide as the validity of the statement washed over her.
But Twilight says he wasn't mad.
You said you weren't feeling guilty. Logic and emotions are ready bedfellows. Twilight Sparkle likely feels angry at you and the others at the moment. She likely feels angry to herself for feeling that way. You cannot allow this. Tomorrow tell the others what I have told you and talk with her. Don't let her damage herself with such thoughts.
I will, Your Highness. I promise.
Pinkie promise? The pink earth pony went through the appropriate motions.
Pinky promise.
That's excellent. Well, now we conclude our exchange. I must be off. I must find where our entertainment has run off to. With that, Luna took off for the sky, leaving Pinkie alone, thinking about what Luna had said. Chapter 8. Spike! Spike was grateful he didn't have any other duties beyond carrying the rings. He had nothing to do with during the 3 hours when the real wedding was being put together. That meant he didn't have to be in contact with Twilight. He couldn't bear to be. The second ceremony went out without a hitch, leaving the lovely couple happily married. As Twilight returned to her suite momentarily, the others followed her to give their apologies. He hid. They called out for him a few times, but decided not to let their window of opportunity slip. He dashed outside into the garden. He remained off to the side, hopefully unnoticed. He didn't want Twilight to see him. He didn't want Celestia or any of the others to ask what was wrong. He just wanted to be left alone. The others came out, all gathering to watch the dancing couple, waiting for Final to finish hooking up the sound system. Spike watched, as he, wishing he was willing to join them, to join Twilight.
Spike?
The dragon gave a small jump and turned around. Sweet Belle was staring there, looking at him with concern.
What's wrong?
Nothing, he said with such quakiness and defensiveness, as he instantly knew it was a lie.
You're lying. You're acting the same way you did after.
She paused and looked around. knowing Spike didn't want this overheard.
After your birthday. Come on, tell me.
Spike cringed at the memory. After it was over, he locked himself in the library and refused to leave for weeks, even to welcome Applejack home from the Canterlot rodeo. Only when the group left for Canterlot to perform in the Heartwarming Eve pageant did he accompany them, feeling he could be safe away from what was to be sure to mental eyes, even though Twilight had assured him that many were kept in the dark about the red-facing dragon's true identity. Over those weeks, his friends had tried everything to cheer him up, to little avail. Sweetie had overheard Twilight tell Rarity that the dragon had slept with her the first 3 nights after out of sheer need to be comforted. When the adults failed, Applejack hit upon the idea of asking the Cutie Crusaders to spend time with him, in hopes that ponies his own age would bring him out of his shell. While he still refused to leave his home, he eventually relented to a few games of cards and checkers, if only to mollify Twilight's worried state. "I said it was nothing," he said sharply. He wanted to yell at her, but that would attract unwanted attention, namely Twilight's.
You're lying. What's wrong?
"Just go away!" he snapped, beginning to walk away. By that point, Twilight had started singing. Thinking quickly, Sweetie spoke.
So, you want to dance?
Spike stopped, looking at the unicorn with a bit of confusion. "What?" She blessed.
I mean, you're upset. Maybe dancing will help you get your mind off of it?
The dragon thought for a moment. He felt no attraction towards Sweetie. All thought of romance were reserved for her older sister. Still, it would be good to be distracted for a bit, even though he didn't think it was possible. At least, he could convince the others he was okay. "Sure, why not?" They took to the dance floor and began dancing. They followed no particular dance, though they both knew some. Being raised in Canterlot, Spike had experience with the upper-class behavior. Sweetie naturally picked certain things up from Rarity, but they both preferred to simply move in time with the music, with whatever they improvised. Eventually, Octavia took the stage with some songs for slow dancing, and while neither dance partner subscribed to the idea that the opposite sex carried cooties, it still became rather awkward. Thus, after a single dance, they decided not to carry on, so they excused themselves from the dance floor and headed out to the side.
Do you feel better?
Sweetie asked. "A little," he admitted. "Thanks."
So, what's wrong?
"I told you nothing," he said, getting defensive again.
Then how can you be feeling better?
She smirked. Spike winced, realizing a slip-up. Still, he persisted. "Mind your own business, Sweetie, or you're going to write another article about me." Sweetie winced to memory, and he instantly regretted his words. I'm sorry, Sweetie, I shouldn't have said that."
It's okay,
she said quietly.
Well, all three of us don't like to remember too much. We really hurt every pony.
"To be honest, I think most of them were too hard on you guys," he said. "Everybody loved your article before they were getting gossiped about."
It was still wrong, she said sadly. I mean, you and Twilight were pretty mad, and we never even wrote an article about you.
Spike rubbed the back of his head. "Well, Twilight's had some bad experiences with gossip." Wisely, he didn't go into detail. The last thing she needed now was a full-on guilt trip. "I was mad enough that you wrote an article on Twilight, but you also said I said those things."
I'm real sorry.
"We already forgave you, remember?"
Is Twilight why you're upset?
Sweetie pressed again.
Rarity told me they were all going to apologize for her for not listening about the fake princess. I thought you were going with them.
I can't," Spike started.
Why not? You didn't do anything worse than my sister or any of the others.
"Yes, I did!" he snapped. He stopped, out of frustration or an unwillingness to say what was troubling him. Sweetie sighed, placing a hoof on his shoulder.
Rarity says it's best to talk about your problems, she said. You can tell me.
"Slider!" Applebloom's voice called out. The pair turned to see the remaining 2 members of the Cutie Mark Crusaders coming toward them. The young farm pony was about to say something, but Sweetie cut her off.
Maybe, whatever it is, we have something more important right now.
She turned back to Spike, who, as he predicted, wasn't too thrilled at the prospect of sharing what was on his mind with 2 more fillies. "You're not going to leave me alone until I tell you, are you?" the dragon sighed. Sweetie nodded as Skittle to ask, "Tell her what?" Spike placed his head in his hand. "Fine, but can we talk somewhere more private? I don't want Twilight to accidentally overhear. Apple Bloom and Skillet gave each other quizzical looks, but Sweet just nodded.
Come on, we'll go to our room in the castle.
The three underage fillies were all staring at Sweet at their insistence, wanting a chance to crusade every evening. They were seriously grateful that, for now, since it seemed to be less of a chance to be interrupted.
All right, Spike, spill the beans. What's wrong? Sweet demanded.
Before I tell you, I want a pinky promise you won't tell Twilight. Skillet rolled her eyes. Spike, come on. No! I can't let her find out. You can never break this promise. At that point, the nearby wardrobe burst open, and a certain pink earth pony flashed a dramatic pose. No! Pinkie said dramatically before backing into the rack of clothes. Oh, hide me from a few minutes ago. How's it hanging? Oh, pretty well. Befuddled, Apple Bloom trundled over to the wardrobe and climbed in, only to find some clothes in a hardwood back.
How the fly?
I wouldn't recommend trying to find out. Spike sighed. There was a bitter grin on his face. Twilight drove herself crazy trying to figure her out. He chuckled at remembrance. Then his face turned to a solemn expression. Anyway, I want a pinky promise, or I'm not talking. The Keymark Crusaders gave signs of exasperation, but before the access nonetheless. There! Now will you tell us? The dragon sighed, slipping his shoulders and hanging his head. Well, I let Twilight down today. School rolled her eyes. So has every pony else. Rainbow Dash was all bumpy and stuff before the reception. It's different from me! He snapped, causing the three fillies to flinch in response. Spike sighed. It's not the same as the others.
Why?
Apple Bloom dared ask.
Because you've been her friend longer than I have? Or because you live with her or something?
Kind of, he admitted sadly. I mean, I kind of messed things up.
Sweetie shook her head. Spike, you're overreacting. The others were all expecting Twilight to yell at them and be angry. But when they came back down, Rarity told me she forgave them easily. I'm sure it'll be the same for you.
I told you it's different from me!
How? Sweetie demanded. You're just as much as her friend as any of the others.
That's the problem! Spike sounded exasperated. I don't want to be friends with her. That statement effectively silenced the three fillies. Wide eyes were their only answer for a few moments.
Spike, what the hell are you talking about?
Apple Bloom demanded. The Skulu gasped, bringing her hose to her mouth. Spike! Are you in love with Twilight? Now Spike looked shocked. His purple scales turned green as he placed his hand over his mouth. Obviously, Topaz's theory was incorrect. Ew! No! I mean, that's just too weird to think about. He shook his head in disgust.
Then, what is it?
Skillet demanded. Spike shot her glare to the side. You guys know I went to join the Dragon Migration a few months ago, right?
They all nodded. Mary told me you went because you were feeling lonely without any other dragons around.
Sweetie spoke. I was, but after I got back, I didn't. I decided I was perfectly happy being with ponies instead. I did see this one cute dragoness called Ember, though. I mean, good golly, she was smoking.
Then what's wrong?
Skillet asked impatiently. Well, I started thinking about how I grew up. Twilight hatched my egg the day she became Celestia's student. And ever since then, she's raised me.
Wait a minute, Skillet interrupted. Twilight told us a story. She was our age when it happened. They let Twilight raise you that young?
Yeah, I mean, Celestia was there to help her, but she let Twilight do everything. She wanted her to learn responsibility since she had all that magic in her. Anyway, Twilight raised me for the day I hatched. Fed me, taught me how to talk and write, took care of me. No matter how busy she was with studying, she always took time to play with me. Spike sighed as he thought back to his days at Canterlot. I didn't have many friends growing up. I mean, I think I'm the only civilized dragon in Equestria. A lot of the upper class didn't want their kids around me. They thought I was an animal. When he trailed out, the three Crusaders looked at each other with worry.
Spike, are you okay?
Apple Bloom said weakly. I think it's pretty clear I'm not! He snapped. You remember me growing giant after my birthday, right? Well, Twilight took me to the doctor about it. And you know what he said? Try a vet! A vet! I'm not a dog! His eyes looked uneasy. I guess this was one more reason that day was so painful to him. Spike shook his head. Anyway, even with all that, Twilight was always there. When ponies made fun of me for being a dragon, she cheered me up. She told me she didn't care when ponies bullied her. I could tell she was lying, and she was only being strong for me. But I still felt better with her supporting me. After we moved to Ponyville, well, when I tried running away from home, she followed after me, even going right to a dragon's cage to get me back. And this was after I had been a jerk the day before. She helped me get through how I felt after my birthday. She followed me right into an area filled with dragons to make sure I was safe on the migration. She's always taking care of me. At that point, Sweetie's eyes widened in realization.
I think I get it, she said slowly. You don't love Twilight as a friend or a special sun pony. You love her as a mother.
There was a pause for Spike, then he lowered his head and nodded. Yeah, I realized how I felt after the migration. I wanted to tell her that, but I really messed that up today. Apple Bloom walked up to him, hoping she looked as comforting as Applejack did whenever she talked to her.
Spike, Twilight looked at your boss sister and never told anyone else for not believing her. I'm sure she'll forgive you, type.
I told you! It's different for me! Spike snapped, exasperated they weren't seeing what he was saying. Twilight's got up against dragons for me, but I couldn't even stand by her when regular ponies were against her! He stopped talking for a moment, a lump appearing in his throat. His eyes were misting over as tears started to prick his eyes. She saved my life twice. I couldn't even believe something she was saying was worth believing. She might still forgive me as a friend, but she'd never want me as a son now.
Spike, I think you're overreacting.
Don't tell me that! He yelled. He actually sounded angry rather than just irritated this time. His voice raised quite a few decibels as he continued. Families supposed to stand by each other, aren't they? But I didn't! The moment it looked bad for her, I just didn't bother! And she stood by for me for everything. I couldn't stand by her! You don't know what it's like! All three of you have families! You have parents or older brothers and sisters, or both to go to! I don't have anything except Twilight, and I threw her aside today! I don't have a family! And now, I never will.
Spike, calm down.
No! I couldn't get the words out of his anger. He just turned around and punched the wardrobe. It split where it struck. Bob hits coming halfway undone. The three fillies jumped at this, their eyes wide with both fear and concern. The dragon looked at the damage he had done, clenching his teeth and fists in anger. Then he looked to the floor, and the tears poured out freely. I go on a rampage and destroy half of Follyville. She still stood by me, but when she had one outburst, I turned my back on her. Even if she would want to be my mother, I don't think I deserve it. Oh, that. The last semblance of control left him. He fell to his knees, lowered his head, and sobbed, letting his heart succumb to his depression. The King and Crusaders looked at each other, unsure what to do. Sweetie was the first to act. She trotted over to the sweet weeping dragon and wrapped her forelegs around him. It had little in the way of visible effects, but it was all the young unicorn could think of to do. Applebloom and Scootaloo soon followed, hugging their friend while feeling awkward that they couldn't do more. How long they stayed like that, they eventually lost track of, but eventually the sobs began to quiet and the group broke their hug. It was Sweetie who spoke first.
Spike, I really think you should talk to Twilight about this.
I can't! He no longer sounded angry, but strained, as he was in trouble putting his thoughts together. I told you, whether she'll accept me or not, I can't do it now.
But Spike,
Applebloom began, but she was stopped, not by the dragons he was trying to comfort, as he was half expecting, but by Sweetie, who held up a hope to silence her friend.
Spike,
Look, she said, trying to think of how to phrase her point.
During the last sisterhood also. We already got into a huge fight. She yelled at me and told me she wished she didn't have a sister. I was so mad at her, I decided I would rather be part of Apple Bloom's family. We both ended up saying hurtful things, but we both made up, and now we're better sisters than ever. My point is that family isn't always perfect like you're saying. I've let down Rarity and my parents. Apple Bloom has let down Applejack and Big Mac, and Scootaloo has let down her parents. The other two fillies winced this, a clear indicator her friend was being truthful. You let down Twilight today, but it's not as bad as you think. You haven't done anything we haven't, and we still have families.
Have any of your mistakes ever left somebody you care about at the mercy of something like the Changeling Queen? Or nearly got an equestrian taking over and every pony gets slain?
Well, no.
Then you haven't messed up like me, he said simply.
Sweet sighed. I don't think we can convince you tonight, she said with some disappointment. So, if you want to keep quiet on this, we will. But I want you to think about something. When my sister and everybody else went up to apologize to Twilight, they were expecting her to be angry at them. But she wasn't. We were all convinced they were bad friends because of it, but they weren't. I'm just starting to was this with you. Just think about it, okay?
Spike looked at her wearily. Fine, he said, his voice betraying his exhaustion. But remember, you can't tell Twilight. We will tell Twilight, Scootaloo asserted. Or anybody else! He added quickly and angrily. The artist's point stopped her off. It's clear he had been thinking of that loophole. Fine, she said angrily. We will tell anybody about this. We promise. Spike rose to his feet. It was an effort, but he managed. When we get back to Ponyville, I will have something I want to give you guys. The trio looked down with quizzical glances. He picked up on the unspoken question. It's something I made for Twilight. I was going to give it to her for Mother's Day, but that's not happening now. Well, what are we supposed to do with it? Scootaloo demanded. I don't know. What if you give it to your mother or Granny Smith? He added to Apple Bloom.
But you're my in for Twilight, the youngest member of the Apple family began. I won't be a slime with Lee.
Then throw it out! Find some use for it! Whatever! I just don't want it anymore!
Spike,
Sleep began, but was cut off by Apple Bloom.
Fine! I'll take it.
Spike seemed suspicious of the filly's insistence, but he didn't press the issue. I think we better get back to the party, he said, his voice having dipped to a completely neutral tone. Twilight's probably already suspicious I've disappeared. The three fillies sighed. He was going to get great lengths to avoid the one point that could help him. Still, they said nothing as he walked out the door, trying his best to look normal. Though his stance still gave him away.
Why did you stop me?
Sleep demanded of her friends after she was sure to drag out of earshot.
I was going to try to get Vincent to hold on to it in case he changes his mind. Because I already know he's going to change his mind. But as long as he has that bracelet, he might throw it out. So we're just going to keep a hold of it until he stops being dumb or goes talk to Twilight.
That makes sense, Scootaloo agreed. Do you think we should do anything else about it?
Maybe we should start visiting Spike again, like we did during that last incident,
Sleep suggested.
Something that's going to pull him out of this faster.
I see we tell Twilight anyway, Scootaloo said bluntly.
No line, Apple Bloom protested. I made a promise, and the Apple family's always true to their word.
Spike's being an idiot, but I don't think we have to listen to him. The red man pointed aside and turned to Slee.
What do you think? I think we should say telling anybody for last, Slee said. Let's try to talk to Spike out of being this way first. If it doesn't work, I think we may have to break our promise.
Both of her companions looked annoyed by this, for what was entirely different reasons. However, they both sighed. I guess that makes sense, Scootaloo conceded. But I still say we're wasting time.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it now, Apple Bloom sighed. Let's just go back to the party. We can worry about it tomorrow.
I guess. The rest of the party passed by unfriendly for the group. Spike stayed out to the side until it was time to see the newlyweds off. He cracked a joke, all of them laughed. All of them thought everything was normal, just as he wanted. The Keymarker singers mingled for a while, but it was clear that this was an adult party they had little interest in. Still, Pinkie and Cadence took enough interest to keep them entertained, at least for a short while. Twilight didn't return to her suite last night. Whatever Luna had wanted to discuss with her had taken all night. This suited Spike just fine as he curled up in the secretary bed. He didn't want to deal with Twilight's probing questions. He didn't want her to notice his emotional state. He just wanted to sleep. We'll back up on that thread in families. Well, of course we're doing families one day! Good golly! It's one of my favorite sequels to the story. Of course I'm going to read it. Were you thinking I was not going to? I mean, good golly. I love that fic. It's got one of my favorite scenes of all time in it. Speaking of, Darth Link kind of requested I added these stories, so as a personal respect for a great author, I'm going to. Even though, technically, Metamorphisis has been done by 2 other people before. Well, time to throw my Speedy Gonzalez into the ring. Here we go. Metamorphosis by Darth Link 22. Chrysalis let out another angry snarl, kicking a changeling that had the misfortune to get too close to her. She had been so close. Celestia was defeated. The only ones that could use the elements of harmony were captured, and Canterlot was within her grip. She shook her head. Where had everything gone wrong? Well, the obvious answer was with Twilight Sparkle, the only one that saw through her disguise. The others had dismissed it as premarital stress, to which she had to laugh. The greatest ceremony of love was also an acceptable excuse to act cruelly. The unicorn had been easy to deal with. A few crocodile tears were all it took to get everyone to turn on her. Even in her defeat, she couldn't laugh at that. Friendship was truly a joke. Then, after being assured no one would look for her, she sent her to those underground caverns. But that's where things fell apart. She didn't kill the real princess in raids. While she had expected this, she hadn't expected her to return to the chapel. She hadn't done much to prevent Twilight from leaving the caves. Why would she? All those points failed for her. Why would she risk her life for them now? She must be really obsessed with her brother. And then, there was Shining Armor and Cadence's love spell. It should not have been so effective on her and her children. She had been feeding off of Shining Armor's love for days. Why did it be damaging to her? It made no sense. It was so much, it overwhelmed her. But why? And how did the 2 of them activate it? How could Cadence still love a stallion that had allowed her to suffer for so long? She growled, sitting on her makeshift throne of rocks. The desert she and her subjects had been scattered to had little in the way of ponies. Only a few scattered towns and some nomadic buffalo tribes. At least there was a cave she could hide in while she thought of her next move. Still, instead of the future, her mind couldn't help but wander to the past. It was long ago. Centuries, in fact. So long that speech patterns were much different then. Still, try as she might, the Queen of the Changelings couldn't help but remember as if they were speaking normally. Of course, she hadn't been a queen then, nor had she been a changeling. Changelings hadn't even existed then. At the time, she was a Pegasus, one of the many Commander Hurricane's ranks. Throughout the years of service, she caught Hurricane's eye, had been promoted as far as Major. However, by this point in time, one wouldn't have been able to guess her previous recommendations. How can you be so foolish? Hurricane demanded, slamming her hoof on the table. I should be asking you the same question, dear Commander. Later, the Pegasus growled at her boldness. Me? I don't go around attacking our allies during such a crucial time. Our tribes should not be interacting as such, the subordinate snapped. What would our forefathers think of us? Sharing our spoils with the unicorns, and let alone Earth Pony filth. Those Earth Pony filth, as you call them, are our allies. And need I remind you, even before Hoof, we relied on the Earth Ponies for food? Your memory is poor. We did not rely on them. We made it clear they would grow food for us, or we make sure they grew no food at all. A mere bluff, Hurricane dismissed. We needed their food badly. Truly, the only thing that's changed from the forming of Equestria is that we rid ourselves of any pretenses. And what of our military campaigns? The subordinate refused to back down. Our plans to expand into the Donkey homelands seems to be forgotten. I told you, those plans are unnecessary. I discussed it with the other leaders, and the land we've claimed is more than sufficient. You've forgotten our destiny, she snarled. She turned to show off her key mark, a sword in front of a shield. When I got this mark on my 7th summer, I was dreaming of overrunning the unicorn homelands, leaving that foul princess and her lover to burn in the ruins. Now you, the one who inspired me to the warpath, brought me such a dream. It was the dream of fools. That thinking nearly destroyed us, allowed the Wendigos to freeze us solid. That era has passed. The others have accepted it. They have not attacked some unicorn dignitaries because they refused to answer some trivial questions. Oh, I had to, she yelled, banging her hoof on the desk. They refused to give me answers. Enough! Hurricane boomed, but this does not silence her. No, I am a warrior. I am ready to take all the trials. Too. The source would never make you an alicorn. It would. I only... Enough! This is a crucial time. The energy of friendship, the same that you defeated the Wendigos, is being transported to the new capital, and I can hardly afford to deal with such an insubordinate Pegasus. Consider yourself strengthening your rank. You are no longer my soldier. Her mouth dropped over. But enough! Leave my sight! I have more important matters to deal with. Young Pegasus just stood there, gritting her teeth. Then she turned around and tromped out of the office, trying to leave holes in her former commander's hardwood floor. As she left, she passed the 2 unicorns that had attacked her. They looked as different as could be, one with a white-pink mane, and the other dark blue with a lighter blue mane.
Hi, Celestia. Hi, Lulu.
The 2 gave her an icy cold stare, which she returned in earnest. However, she never slowed her pace, and was soon out of the building. She sighed, sitting on a cloud far beyond the capital city's borders. At least, what would be the capital city. It was still in its early stages of being built. Only the new capital building stood out, a beautiful stone castle. The Earth Ponies had finished it with great speed. Even she had been impressed. Still, she hated it, for all of its beauty. A building for the 3 tribes to work together? How sickening. Prissy unicorns and filthy Earth Ponies standing proudly alongside the superior race made her stomach turn. Disgusting, she muttered. I couldn't agree more. A voice concurred. A warrior's mane stood up on end. She turned around, ready to trample the pony who had disturbed her brooding. In a rare occurrence, she was stopped. It wasn't a pony that disturbed her. She wasn't sure what it was. The creature before her looked as if it had several animals been merged together in one single jumbled mess. The sheer unbelievability of the sight stopped her raging temper, leaving her pure bafflement. It's quite revolting, isn't it? The creature said, slithering past her and overlooking the city. Peace and harmony. Gag! He opened his mouth, and pointing a finger down at it, making sounds as if he were going to vomit. Who are you? She finally demanded. He turned to her, grinning sardonically. I am Discord, master of chaos and disharmony, ready for you to serve me. Serve you? She shrieked, offended. What mad, twisted force saw fit to spew a foul creature like you out? Hey now, Discord said, holding up his arms in defense. That's not very nice. I'm just an all-powerful, malevolent god who has to be here now that the Wendigos have failed, and you're going to serve me quite willingly, because I'm going to give you something you want more than anything. At that, her anger cooled. She arched a skeptical eyebrow. And what is that? Smiling sadistically, Discord raised his lion's paw and snapped it. In an instant, the young Pegasus felt 10 times stronger, like she could face Commander Hurricane's whole battalion single-hoofed. A mirror appeared in front of her, allowing her to see herself. She gasped. She was an alicorn. She was larger, her wingspan more than 3 times its usual length, and a beautiful blue horn sticking out of her forehead. The strengths of all 3 tribes. Sure, wings are superior to strength and magic, but having the other 2 is still a nice bonus. But how? Only the source can... Discord scoffed. Would you honestly believe your priest? There is nothing I can't do. I can give you everything. the powers of all three tribes, a loyal army for you to command, and a great victory against the mighty city. With that, he snapped his fingers again, turning it back to normal. No! She straightened, turning back to the man, mad god. I must! He tossed the mirror away, while waving a talon in his face. Not yet. That was chump change compared to what powers I'm going to give you. All you have to do is one little job for me. Pegasus looked away uneasily before turning back to him. What do I have to do? Discord gestured to the Capitol building. You see that? It's a symbol of the three tribes, putting aside their hatred of one another, to join hooves of friendship. It has to go. But as long as that friendship energy is present, I can't even approach the city. The same that defeated the Wendigos. The very one, he growled. I need you to go in there and destroy it for me. She looked at our benefactor skeptically. I no longer hold rank in Hurricane's forces. They will not allow me anywhere near the energy. As skilled as a warrior I am, I cannot fight them all. Discord chuckled. Then we'll just have to get you an army. With that, he snapped his fingers, and the two disappeared. When they reappeared, the Pegasus wobbled wearily for a moment, the teleportation leaving her momentarily disoriented. She shook her head, trying to get her wits together. They were on another cloud, overlooking another city. They were ponies, but they weren't Pegasus, unicorn, or earth ponies. They had wings, but they were like butterfly wings, moving in smooth and elegant rhythm. The city they inhabited was immaculate and bright. It seemed to generate good feelings. Flutter ponies, Discord explained. A fourth tribe. Had the good sense to go into hiding a few hundred years back to avoid the conflict between the three remaining races. You mean there have been these bugs all this time, taken to the skies that rightfully belong to the Pegasi? Indeed. They can't manipulate weather, though they can produce some powerful wind currents. Bah! At least the Earth ponies can handle some heavy lifting, she scoffed. Indeed. Still, I believe we could get some use out of them. Discord said in a rather casual manner. He snapped his ingle fingers. In an instant, every flutter pony stopped in midair and dropped to the ground. They convulsed wildly, as if they were being torn apart from the inside out. Their skin turned dark, their wings turned transparent, fangs grew in their mouth, and their horns sprouted in the middle of their foreheads. Holes appeared in their legs, and their eyes lost any pupils and irises until they were pale blue. Once their transformations were complete, they rose to greet their new masters. Each looked exactly the same, none of the distinguishing features they had previously repressed. The Pegasus gaped at the soul of power. An entire race, changed at nothing more than a snap of some fingers. She looked at our benefactor with frightening awe. Discord gave a mad grin, and then placed another finger on her forehead. In an instant, the Pegasus felt like he was going to be split in two. Thousands of thoughts poked her brain, shouting for direction and guidance. She fell to the ground, crying from the agony of it all. I've linked you with your soldiers. You can command them with a mere thought. I could have made it painless, but where's the joy in that? The Pegasus began to subside, as Discord kept speaking. My little changelings here could take any form and hold it indefinitely. Oh, and as a little bonus, they feed off love. Can you imagine it? The very source that you're counting on to protect them is going to fuel my victory! By now the pain had dulled, and the Pegasus sat up. I can handle it now. I feel each and every one of them are ready to serve me. And I'm sure you could think of a use for them, can't you? In the Capitol building, there was a room where the three layers sat. Commander Hurricane, Princess Platinum, and Chancellor Puddinghead all sat in the three highest seats. They still kept their old titles, though there was little more to them now than tradition. Their subordinates sat just below them, the ones who began the bonds of friendship that united them. Several other seats were filled with other ponies, the start of a new government. Several Unisaur and Pegasi guards surrounded the perimeter, guarding the room's most valuable item. The energy sat in a special orb, created by the Clever herself. Was resting on a stone bust in the center of the room. My friends, Platinum began, addressing the council, on this eve we officially usher in a new era. Our three tribes have united most splendidly, and the fires of our friendship have vanquished the foul Wendigos and allowed us to build a strong new nation. The orb you see in front of you contains the very essence of our unity. May it guide Equestria for generations to come. That line was met with a most unusual response. Slow, sarcastic laughter filled the chamber, causing all present to pause and look around in confusion. Chuckling, the rogue Pegasus stood in the entryway, her mouth in a cruel grin. You continually exceed my expectations, Your Highness. Every time I think you unicorns couldn't get more disgustingly sentimental, you say something that proves me wrong. What are you doing here? Hurricane demanded. Did I not make it clear you were not in my elite any longer? You did, she smirked. I no longer take orders from you, Commander. I have no time for this. The leader of the Pegasi exclaimed. Guards, arrest the traitor! There was silence. None of the guards moved. The Pegasus grinned. You heard her. At that, the soldiers did not move, taking threatening steps toward the council seats where the three leaders sat. What is the meaning of this? Hurricane demanded. They're doing as you said, the rogue soldier said, taking steps to the center of the room. You've betrayed the Pegasi race. You brought us down to the level of the unicorns and these filthy earth ponies. How dare you? Pinkie had sighed. You had no right to. She was cut off by a blast of magic from the unicorn guards, who knocked her back in her seat. I have better things to do than to listen to you. Trayer scoffed. Clover the Clever's face scrunched in confusion. That didn't feel like unicorn magic. Very observant, the trader noted. At that point, every guard in the room glowed a sickly green glow. Flames enveloping them, revealing their true forms. What have you done to them? Hurricane demanded as she and the others were surrounded by the strange creatures being held in place. What have you done to my guards? My guards slit their throats, the trader said casually, moving towards the heresy. These delightful little creatures merely took their forms. There isn't a single guard in this room that's a pony. Which makes what I have to do much simpler. She brought her mouth down, seizing her sword. They held in her teeth. She walked up to the orb that held the capital city's most powerful source. There was a unanimous cry of No! From every pony in the room. Clover fired a magic blast from her horn, but the changelings were too quick and tackled her before she finished her spell. She continued casting spells, but they only succeeded in scorching the ceiling. Smart Cookie and Pansy attempted to leap out of their seats as well, but were stopped just as effectively. Stop! Pansy screamed, struggling against her captors. You don't know what you're doing! I know exactly what I'm doing, you simpering fool! She scoffed, though her words were a bit muffled due to the weapon in her mouth. That a spineless fool like you was given such a high rank disgusts me! With one final show of contempt, she plunged the sword through the orb. In an instant, its glow stopped, leaving a gray spear in its place. The cracks branched out from the blade, circling the orb. Finally, it broke apart, falling to 6 separate but oddly equal places. A collective gasp emerged from the associated ponies. Fool! The Smart Cookie cried. Insolent fool! How could you? In a moment, there was a flash of white light. Discord appeared, cackling madly while lightning flashed in the background. An impressive feat considering you were inside. The ponies all gasped at the unusual creature before them. The trader simply saluted. I have successfully completed my mission, sir. Oh, really now? Using military protocol on me? You don't know me very well, he scoffed. Clover the Clever was the first to find the will to speak. What are you? Green, the Chronicle snapped his fingers, allowing a golden sign to appear above him, as several fireworks go off around him. I'm Discord! Master of Chaos and Disharmony! He yelled, striking a disparate pose. In an instant, the flashy display disappeared. Oh, and FYI, I'm taking over this kingdom and turning you all into my personal playthings. So, yeah, abandon all hope and kiss your standing goodbye! Coward! Why not call these beasts off and fight me hoof to hoof? Hurricane demanded. Silence! He doesn't need to prove anything! At that moment, The train's mouth became a zipper, was close to self. Discord chastised. This could be interesting. You bugs, shoot! Go chaos and chaos in this already. That's what I made you for, anyway. The changelings obeyed, flying out of the room without a thought. With that, he turned back to the leader to pick a side. Well... Wasting no time, Hurricane pulled her sword and flew towards her opponent. In response, Discord snapped his fingers. Suddenly, Hurricane deviated from her flight path, causing hard to the floor. Years of battle experience caused her to recover quickly, letting her check her wings. She let out a gasp. They were upside down. What? Hell! Hurricane began, only to be cut off when Discord snapped his fingers again. Out of the commander's mouth came an arrow, flying straight and true as if it had been aimed by the most skilled archer in Equestria. Unfortunately, she had been looking at Pansy when it happened. Hurricane opened her mouth to cry her lieutenant's name, which only resulted in 2 more arrows launching themselves into her friend's corpse. Tears in her eyes, she fell to the ground. The normally proud warrior broken. You monster! Clover the Clever shouted. The other leaders and their subordinates wasted no time leaping at the creature in an attempt to take it down. Discord raised an eyebrow, then turned intangible, allowing the attacking ponies to pass right through him. Really? You're attacking me? After seeing that, he exclaimed, snapping his fingers. In a flash, 4 very different things happened. Chancellor Puddinghead actually turned into pudding, falling to the ground in a goofy mess. Her headless body stumbled around, slipping on what used to be a part of it. Smart Cookie actually turned into a pony-seed cookie, as if she were fresh out of the oven. Unfortunately, this made her legs too weak to support her, and they crumbled apart. She felt every bit of it, screaming in pain as more of her body broke off. Clover's magic produced only clovers. The clovers began sprouting all over her. She screamed in absolute fear as they covered her body, making her appear as she was some sort of walking shrubbery. Princess Platinum actually turned into platinum. At first it was a pony-shaped statue, but then the form bent into a ball, until it resembled a boulder. Discord laughed uproariously. His subordinate couldn't help but have the same reaction. The reaction of the other ponies, however, was far different. They screamed in terror, all jumping out of their seats and stampeding over themselves in sheer terror. This made Discord's laugh even harder. He snapped his fingers again. A unicorn's horn glowed deep red, causing him to scream in pain and attempted to tear off his head. Another snap. A Pegasus' feathers came from her wings. Their quills grew sharp and they began stabbing her in the flank while she ran for dear life. Another snap. And the nerve point became as flat as a sheet of parchment, blowing away its slightest breeze. However, Discord's gains were interrupted with a cry of, "Stop, foul being!" Master Chaos arched an eyebrow as 2 unicorns stepped forward. His subordinate recognized them as the 2 that cost her a place in Hurricane's forces. The darker one spoke. "We shall stop your flagrant terror!" Discord hit the ground laughing, wiping a tear off his eye. Well then, here, he said, summoning a target in front of him. A free shot. It'll crush your hopes all the more rarely. The 2 unicorns bowed out their horns and let loose 2 blasts of magic. They entwined, moving in a drilling motion before driving right into Discord's face. The Dicarchus yawned. He didn't flinch or show any sign of pain. Very nice. It looked very pretty if there's anything else, he said casually as he snapped his fingers, causing the pair to freeze in place. Now, I guess I have to make an example of you. Oh, what to do. While she had enjoyed the game at first, the rogue Pegasus was beginning to lose her paces. Pardon me, but I believe it's time for you to fulfill your end of the deal. Discord gave her a neutral look. He smirked. I suppose it is. Then he snapped his fingers. She braced herself for the power of an alicorn. It never came. Instead, 3 of her changelings appeared before her. Before she could comprehend what was going on, they leapt onto her, pinned her onto the ground. One reared up, to spat a projectile of green slime right into her face. Ah! She screamed in panic, as the changeling continued to cover her in the muck. What is this? You said you'd make me an alicorn! No, I didn't. I said I'd make you powerful. I could change you into one of those, but honestly, where's the joy in that? She opened her mouth to protest again, but she was silenced by another blast of slime to the face. It hardened and tightened around her muscle, restricting her ability to talk. Now, Discord said with false gentleness. Just relax. It'll be easier. She tried to disobey at first, but suddenly everything felt hazy. Her eyelids drooped as the slime completely encased her. The last thing she felt herself being lifted up before she drifted off to sleep. She was brought back to consciousness when she felt herself hit the floor. Moaning in pain, she attempted to lift herself up onto her legs, but they still wobbled under her weight. Wakey, wakey, Discord chanted as her eyes began to regain focus. First thing she noticed was how different the meeting room was. Every wall was now a differently colored pattern. One, a blue and yellow checkerboard pattern, the other purple with green stripes and so on. The seats where the ponies once sat were now attached to a bright pink ceiling, with the speaker podium occupied by a diluted earth pony, raising about certain sorts of yo-yo polish in Equestria. Morbidly, the remains of the 6 leaders were there, a heap of rotten and spoiled cooking and pudding, the still impaled body of Pansy next to the now bloody form of Hurricane, a messy shrubbery of clover, and a large slab of platinum. "What have you?" she said weakly, still trying to stand. "Oh, of course," he laughed knowingly. "You want to see the new you. By all means, take a look." He summoned a mirror. She looked at her reflection and felt sick. She was one of them now. A dark black hair with stringy, filthy blue mane, fangs, holes in her legs, feather wings replaced with an insect-like pair. She had a horn now, but that brought little comfort. Even her cutie mark, the very symbol of who she was, had been robbed from her. "What have you done to me?" "Why, I gave you what you wanted. You have power, the abilities of all 3 tribes, and your own Ari to boot. I don't see what you're so upset about, Chrysalis." She turned to Discord wide eyes. "What did you call me?" "Chrysalis. Such a lovely name, don't you think?" "Oh, who cares what you think? That's your name, like it or not." "No, my name's—" She stopped. She didn't remember her name. "Oh, remembering your old name would have made it more difficult for you to embrace your new one, so I erased it from history. Oh, don't worry, it wasn't that great anyway. But Chrysalis, very nice. Symbolizes how you changed from a proud Pegasus warrior to this little mess, and all in your own doing." "My doing?" She shrieked. "You did this to me. I never asked this." "Oh, really?" She mocked, snapping his fingers again. A notepad appeared in his lion's pod. His rain glasses appeared on his face. "You wanted the power of all 3 races. I gave you a horn and a pony straight, but less safe-seeking powers to boot. You wanted a loyal army. I gave you one that follows your every thought. You wanted to conquer nations. I let you do that under my name." He snapped his talons again, causing the notepad glasses to disappear. "You have exactly what you wanted. I just didn't dress it up. Don't blame me if it's not as great as you thought it would be." You! She shrieked, lunging at him. Discord quickly snapped his fingers. Chrysalis's back bent a full 90 degrees in the direction it shouldn't have. Her eyes bulged as she shrieked in pain. She did something she prided herself on never doing. She cried. At that, her spine straightened, leaving her a sobbing wreck on the floor. Discord floated up to her face. "Now, you see what happens when you think that you're anything more than a tool to me." "Yes," she said through her tears. "Good girl," he mocked, patting her on the cheek. "Just be careful you didn't end up like those 2 unicorn sisters. Oh, they were a great time. I summoned every pony that had any blood related to them, and then I destroyed them all with some of my best work and made them what? Oh, I don't think I'll ever top that. And the best part is, I made them immortal afterward. Oh, you should have seen it. The first thing the purple one tried to do was cut her own throat, and the white one tried casting all of her most deadly spells on herself." He laughed at his memories, but his mirth turned to a grimace. "And then they had to kill the mood." "Oh, why are you doing this?" he mocked with a poor impression. "I mean, hello, Master of Chaos and Disharmony here. Like I need a reason to do anything. I really need to think of some kind of punishment before asking why." He rubbed his chin in thought. Anyway, after a few attempts, they gathered up the remains of that orb and wandered away. Good riddance to them. They were getting too grim for my taste anyway. Besides, now I can work on other things, like that plant that plays practical jokes on ponies. By this point, Chrysalis had risen to her feet. She was no longer in any physical pain, but her heart was still heavy at the newfound hopelessness of her situation. She also felt a strange emptiness inside her. She felt hungry, but she didn't desire food. Oh yeah, you feed on love now. Too bad no creature could love you now. Even if you didn't look so hideous, you'd never be forgiven for what you've done. You'd better start using those shape-shifting powers, and every time you and your changelings do that, it'll breed fear and mistrust about ponies. Oh, an easy way to spread chaos. I'm as brilliant as I am lovely. 3 months? Had it really been only 3 months? To the ponies living under Discord's rule, centuries might have passed. The sun and moon rose and set completely at random. Clouds of cotton and candy rained chocolate milk. It snowed mashed potatoes and gravy. The wind had a nasty habit of suddenly blowing at deadly speeds with a minty smell to it. If the Terraconquests were ever overthrown, the tactics used by the unicorns and Pegasi for extortion would become unnecessary. Inside the former capital building, Discord floated over a fiery pit, holding several marionettes and control bars, 2 of each hand and 1 in his tail. Attached to them by strings were a Pegasus, a unicorn, and an earth pony, all wiggling just above the flames. Laughing, Discord manipulated the earth pony into dipping his flank into the fire, causing him to scream and howl in pain. He began to know the reason why, was the result in several cockroaches swarming out of his mouth. The Disc Master of Chaos chuckled. They took a moment to listen to the speaker on the ceiling, who was now proposing that a bill that all ponies wear interesting boxers on Tuesdays. Laughing, Discord manipulated the earth pony into dipping his... Wait a minute, why am I reading that line again? Discord! Chrysalis sat to one side of the pit, a survey to chaos and smirking. As if terrible had her life become, she took solace knowing others were suffering worse than she. However, her enjoyment faded when a thought entered her head. Discord, one of my changelings reports 2 ponies are heading this way. It says they're Atacons. Really? My, this should be interesting. He nodded, looked down at his 3 captives. You hear that, my little ponies? We're about to get the whole set. The captives only wailed in response. At that moment, the doors into the room opened. The 2 Alcorns entered, glaring at the Draconequus. Both Discord and Chrysalis couldn't help but shake the feeling of familiarity of them. One was white, with a flowing ethereal mane of every color of the rainbow, while the other was a dark blue with a mane of stars. Both wore armor, gold for the light one, onyx for the dark one. Both with what appeared to be 3 jewels in them. Discord! Your reign has come to an end, the white one announced. If I had a bit for every time I heard that, well, I guess I have a whole lot of nothing. Since money means nothing anymore, Discord rambled. Both Alicorn's horns glowed, causing Discord's puppets to disappear and reappear on the side of the pit. They rushed out the door, hopeful the mad god would focus his efforts on the 2 new intruders. The pony on the ceiling disappeared as well, teleported safely by the pair. Aw, you're no fun, Discord whined. We will not allow you to harm any more ponies as you did to our family, the darker one explained. Oh, I hurt your family's win. What? The whiter one asked incredulously. You killed them all horrifically. Then you cursed us with immortality so we could never join them in death. Discord said, putting his talons to his chin in deep thought. Oh yeah, you 2. How's it going? Oh, that's it! The darker one exclaimed. Come, dear sister. Let's activate a new weapon. Ooh, a new weapon. Discord laughed, clapping his hands and jumping in a childless mare. Let's see it! In response, the 2 Alcorn's eyes glowed with intense white. The room seemed to rumble under their power. Then a bright rainbow streak began circling them. Oh my, what a pretty rainbow! Discord mocked. The light sound soared to the ceiling before arcing downward. Why, it puts a song in my heart! The rainbow hit him as he struck a dramatic pose. Somewhere over the ring! He never finished that lyric, because at this point his neck turned to stone. By the time he realized what was happening, his whole body frozen at that moment of over-exaggerated singing. Chrysalis' eyes widened. Discord, who had taken out armies without breaking a sweat, had been defeated with one blow. Perhaps fleeing would be wise. Before she could, however, the bright rainbow light shot out in a wave around the statue, enveloping her. She felt her body stiffen, her body getting harder. It was getting difficult to breathe. Chrysalis was brought back to the waking world with a rude "wakey wakey." The Queen and Changelings moaned as she rubbed her head. She looked around. She appeared to be in a cave of some sort, with very illumination and a single light. The only thing she could make out was an all too familiar Draconicus in front of her.
What happened? Were we victorious?
Discord shook his head. Sadly, no. Those two turned us both to stone. I guess I underestimated them.
I was turned to stone?
Chrysalis asked, alarmed.
How long?
Over 1,000 years. Oh, so much has changed. Ha 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 ha! He laughed. He placed a finger on the changeling's head. In an instant, she received an intense headache as several new thoughts entered her hair. There. That should catch you up on everything. Chrysalis' mind reeled. The weapons used to defeat Discord were the elements of harmony. The two Alicorns had defeated them now ruled Equestria, still living thanks to Discord's curse. The elements were now wielded by 6 ponies. Of all 3 tribes she saw. How disgusting. Still, she couldn't put any faces to them.
Where are my changelings?
She demanded. Discord pointed behind her. She looked behind her, seeing nothing but the floor. Then she realized it wasn't floor. All of her soldiers were now stone, frozen in place and piled beneath her. You know, it's not every day you read a fanfic and you get a terracotta soldiers reference. Celestia and Luna turned you all to stone. Then they piled you all in here.
Well,
she demanded,
aren't you going to release them?
Hey, patience. They're my ace in the hole. I still need to break that mortal's hold that hold the elements. If I fail, I go back to being a rock. And that happens, you're going to be the one going to Canterlot and free me a second time.
And why would I do that?
She demanded. Because with or without your help, I'll escape eventually. And believe me, you won't like what I'll do to you. He threatened, leaning in toward her with glaring eyes. Chrysalis shook. Discord rose up towards the hole in the roof. If I lose, this mountain will open up again, and your changelings will turn back to normal. They'll likely stick me back in Canterlot, so look here first. Now if you'll excuse me, the bearers of the elements be in the castle by now. Time for me to make my entrance. With a snap of his fingers, the mountain closed itself. Of course, Discord failed. She and her subjects were free. By then, however, she decided she wouldn't follow through Discord's plans. If the power of friendship could defeat him so easily, surely the power of love would be just as effective. She staged her takeover for her benefit, not his. A whole kingdom of brainwashed ponies would provide more than enough love to power her up to face Discord. She failed, however. Failed, exposed her existence and scared her subjects, at least temporarily. Now she was doomed to Discord if her did get free again, and she didn't think quickly. Still, her plans to conquer Canterlot were now only half her plans. There were other matters. Twilight Sparkle, Shining Armor, Princess Cadence, wrestling a unicorn, she understood, managed to conquer the trials at a very young age. She needed to figure them out. How had they produced a love spell capable of hurting her? How did the elements of harmony turn her into stone instead of giving her a power boost? Why did they behave so irrationally? She needed to understand these things so she could feel her new secondary coal. It used to be the Earth Ponies she hated the most, but now, you 3, you'll pay.